thanks for meeting with me. I know it's probably a crazy day, but we really wanted to do just like a longer piece on you and just your career, your life story, and just it's such a historic moment that I think is going to resonate with so many people. Yeah. So, do you have any questions before we start?
No, that's good.
How are you feeling? You have this win. What's going through your mind?
I'm excited, but I'm also a little bit scared, right? I mean, this is a big deal, and you're like, when you think about that, this isn't just a job. This isn't just about running a city. You're also carrying all of the wishes and hopes and dreams of people with you into this work, and so that's a big responsibility.
Yeah. Yes, how much sleep did you get last night?
I got a couple hours. Yeah, but then my phone was dinging off the hook since like 6 a.m. this morning, then I couldn't sleep anymore after that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm sure too, like I had like adrenaline, almost just excitement.
Yeah. I don't know. What are we saying, Matt?
Your hands.
Oh, sorry. I do this weird thing where like I do weird things with my hands. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, because you guys can cut that out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I got a couple of hours of sleep, and it's been really just a lot of messaging from people and notes coming in and just encouraging us to, just congratulating us and encouraging us to keep moving forward and bringing the vision forward. So, yeah.
Sure. And then I'm going to ask you a little bit too, just kind of about your life and your life story. I already know a little bit, like, so you were born in a refugee camp in Laos, right?
Actually, I wasn't born in a refugee camp. I was just born.
Why I asked.
Yes, I was just born in the mountains of Laos. Gotcha. I was born, in the house, our house, which is what I understand from my mom. It was just a bamboo hut in the mountains of Laos, and it was in the village. It was in our family's village. But then I did, come to the refugee camp once the fall of Vietnam, and Laos also fell. Then when we crossed the river and went over to Thailand into a refugee camp there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I know you were really young at that time.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything from that time? Like, you were so little.
I don't, but I do have a vague memory of playing in like mountains or caves, and then also like a little pair of shoes that had these little red bows. And one side of that little shoe made it to America. I don't know what happened on the other side, but because then I saw it years later. Yeah. So just little vague memories like that. Yeah.
And were you 3 when you got here?
Yes, 3 years old.
And then you had an older sister, right, that came with you, and then a younger sister too. Right?
Yep, there was 3 of us born in Laos, and then 3 born in America.
Got it.
Yeah.
I talked to Paul today on the phone, your
Paul.
brother.
Oh, my brother. You talked to my brother Paul. How did you guys get his number and talk to him?
I met him at the watch party last night.
Oh.
And I was just talking to him, and then I was like, can I get your number? I might have to call you,
Yeah.
to do a bigger story. And he was like, oh yeah. So I called him. He picked up on the first ring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
So he talked a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah.
And kind of
my siblings have never been interviewed. I'm like, what are they saying about me? Because I've been having to get to tell my own narrative and story, and I'm like, how would somebody else see me, and what would they say? Yeah.
So he talked a little bit about growing up in Appleton area and being one of the few families of color in that area.
That's right.
Yeah, what was that like for you?
The funny thing is, it's like when that's just what you're a part of, you don't know any different. I mean, we experience things, and to be honest, I didn't even know what racism was, because when it just kind of happens to you, you just think this is just what happens to people. Like, I remembered somebody ripped up a bag of garbage in front of our front yard, or someone left a dead fish on our doorstep. Or people would call us racial slurs, and I didn't even know those were racial slurs. It's really interesting because my parents never stereotyped other people, because I don't think that they even knew what stereotypes were, and they didn't. My family, because we're a family of really deep faith, there was no swearing in my family, so I just grew up not hearing negative things. They were very protective of us around gossiping or around negativity, talking negatively to other people. So I didn't really hear those things. So when I saw things happening, I just thought, oh, this just must be what other people do. And I didn't attribute that to race, because my parents didn't do that, right? They didn't even use things within our own home that where sometimes you do things in private, sometimes you do things in public. My parents just didn't do that. So I don't know. It took me until probably in my early 30s for me to understand, like late 20s, where I started understanding like there were racial dynamics that were playing out. Until I attended my first kind of like racial justice training in my 30s, where I was like, oh my gosh, there's words to all these things that I had experienced and what was happening. Because like I grew up very insulated, and there weren't a lot of people of color, so it wasn't like I could talk to other people about their experiences. And then I went to college, and there weren't that many Hmong people going to college when I was there, and I was so focused on studying that I didn't really go out or have friends. And then I went to work in the corporate sector, and it was like very much dominant culture. And so like it was just my experience that this is just the way it was. And so it was, until my 30s where somebody gave me the words and the language to understand, oh, these things actually exist, and there's language to talk about what is happening around me all the time. I'm not crazy. These things I'm feeling, I'm not crazy. It's really real. Yeah. And no, that's such a weird thing. I don't know if I should tell you all that stuff.
And then you went, was it UW-Madison
I
for
did.
undergrad?
Yeah.
And what did you study?
I studied investments and finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your family moved to Minnesota in like the early 90s?
Yep, 91 my family moved up here.
Okay.
But I was still at college at the time, but my family's been up here since 91.
Okay.
Well, so I have to clarify that. So my immediate family, so my mom and my dad and my siblings moved 91, but my grandparents and all of my aunts and uncles have been up here since the late 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so then did you move to Minnesota after you finished college?
Yep, I just came to join my family when I was done, yeah.
And that was in St. Paul, or was it North St. Paul?
They were in North St. Paul, yeah. Most of my family at that time were still in St. Paul, and my parents were the only ones that were in the suburb, so yeah.
Sure. And what was it like, what do you remember from, when you first came to Minnesota, like St. Paul area?
It was so big to me. Like St. Paul was the big city. I remembered when I got my first job at Minnesota Life, or it's Securian now, but it used to be Minnesota Life, and going to downtown St. Paul, even that was big. That wasn't even Minneapolis, right? I was just going to St. Paul. This is so big. And like driving on highways, like when you grow up in a smaller town, you don't really drive highways. And so like it just was so big. It was so big. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then your first kind of experience with politics, was that working for Mayor Carter's office? Can you tell me about that and why you wanted to kind of go the politics route?
I don't know if I knew to go the politics route. I mean, I was aware of politics, but I didn't know, I never really saw myself in it. And so I got into policy work because Mayor Carter asked for me to be his policy director, and I didn't have any policy experience. And at that time, I remember having a conversation with him saying that, I don't actually have policy experience. And he said to me, you do, you just don't know you do. Because I didn't even know what it meant, what policy was. And then it turned out that I had this deep experience in it because I came from a background of reading legal documents, working in pensions and having to really understand plan documents, or working at the school district and understanding the policies and the procedures that they were implementing there. Like it turned out that I had been working around policy my whole life. I just didn't know that was the word for it. And so that's why I was able to execute on the things that he wanted to get done his first term. I was able to do that because I did have an extensive background in that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And then, so after you graduated, you worked for, what's now Securian. So were you working more in like finance?
I was.
Stuff, and then you worked for a school district?
I did. So I spent 15 years in the private sector doing finance work. And my first job out of college was managing 401k plans.
And then what did you do in the school district?
I was their board administrator. So it was a new position that was created by the school board to just support the school board's work. And so I was kind of the conduit between the school board and the administration. Yeah.
Sure. And then you were in the house since 2018, right?
Yeah, 2018. I will say that I did a couple of other jobs in between there too, because I also worked at the St. Paul, Minnesota Foundation as the director of grants and processes. Gotcha. So I did do that job as well. Sure. Yeah, and then I was a stay-at-home mom in between there for a number of years too.
And you have, how many kids do you have?
Two.
How old are they now?
They're 26 and 22 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm 27. So,
so I was staying at home when you were growing up too.
Yeah, my mom stayed at home when I was young, which
Yeah.
I'm really like grateful I had that time. with
Yeah.
her, so.
I hope one day my kids could say that too.
I'm sure they will. And then how'd you meet your husband?
We met at college at Madison.
Nice.
Yeah, we were 20 years old when we met each other.
Has he been a big support to you throughout just your career in this process too?
So much so. I mean, you know, my career in the private sector took me across the country, and it was at his encouraging, because, you know, traditionally in a Hmong family, you know, the wife isn't the one that directs where your family lives. We are very clan-based, and so you usually follow the husband's clan or their family. And I know lots have changed. You know, this newer generation, things have changed. But like in our generation, you wouldn't move away. You wouldn't follow your wife. And my husband went with me to D.C., you know, Baltimore and D.C. He went with me to Chicago to come back here. So, you know, like he was very supportive of my career. And even like in this campaign, like he had his own personal goal of how many doors he would knock a week for me. So his personal goal was 200 doors a week. And so he would get really like, he would like check in with me and be like, I can't knock tonight. I don't know if I'm gonna meet my 200 door goal. And I'm like, it's okay. So like he was very much invested, and like he would come home and tell me the number of people he convinced and who was gonna, you know, like go vote. And he was very much invested in this race. And he went to a lot of events and social events and meet and greets and community events with me. And you know, he's been really supportive. Yeah.
That's great. And when you were traveling a lot, was that when you were working in finance or when?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 15 years I was in finance. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then, like, while you were serving as a House representative, what are some things that you're like really proud of? Some like legislation that you championed that like what are some kind of key moments from that time?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah,
you know, I'm so proud of the bills that I've been able to carry. So I will say that eliminating child marriages, like in the state of Minnesota, you can't get married as a minor. I'm really proud of that. I was also the chief author that carried and passed the bill to eliminate the pay history question. And I know people are always like, what is that? And it's because if an employer can ask you what you made at your last job, then women and people of color will constantly be locked in a lower cycle of pay. And so we saw that in states where they eliminated this, that there was more parity in pay between gender and ethnic or racial background. And so to be able to eliminate that, to try to close that gap in pay was really important to me and what I've seen play out in people's lives. I would say that other bills that I'm really proud of is just prohibiting insurance companies from discriminating if you've donated a marrow or donated marrow or an organ. Yeah, and like things like, you know, being able to double the English language learner subsidy as a person who English wasn't my first language. You know, to pass that kind of bill that we hadn't increased that subsidy for English language learners in decades. But I would say that too, some of the things that didn't pass are some of the bills that that were the most important to me, right? Like forcing, asking anybody who wanted a permit from the MPCA to do a demographic analysis to see who the pollutants were actually going to most greatly impact, right? Because we know that disproportionately it's usually communities of color or low-income communities, or carrying the Equal Rights Amendment bill. Like that bill is huge, and it was such an honor to be the person who got to carry that. And then I carried some gun bills at the state legislature, and I'm still the chief author of the reporting lost and stolen firearm that didn't pass. But it was so important for us to carry this work so that people are aware of like what we're trying to do to protect people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure. And then can you walk me through a bit when you decided to run for mayor this year? When did you kind of have that moment when you were like, I want to do this?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because people had been asking me to run for a long time. I would say a couple of years. And I just, you know, it was not something that I was thinking about because I love my job at the legislature so much. And so, you know, I'm somebody who, I meet with people all the time. I do my best to go to as many events in community as possible. And I started hearing things from people that our city wasn't doing well. And so, and even then, when I heard that, I wasn't convinced that it should be me that should be the one to run. And, you know, it wasn't, I kept hearing all of these things, and then Melissa was murdered in June 14th, and I was really not doing well with that loss. And all I kept thinking about was no one knew that there was an election. And I haven't said this part maybe in other, interviews I've done, but I actually went to Rondo Days, and I was staffing Congresswoman McCollum's tent because she was there. And there was actually a couple from the Cathedral Hill neighborhood who walked up to the tent, and we were chatting. And I said, "Oh, I'm your state representative," and I was actually talking about my state job. And I said, "Well, and we started having this conversation about how the city was doing, and I wasn't asking for any particular reason. We were just chatting because I just want to know how people are feeling." And they said, "Well, there's this project in our neighborhood, and we're really frustrated with it." And they kind of told me the issue with that. And then I said, "Well, I mean, if you had another candidate who was running, would you consider it?" And they were like, "Oh." And I said, "Well, what if that candidate was me? Would you?" And they were like, "Yeah." So I thought, okay, so maybe just wondering if we could do, just anybody, would that be okay? And they were like, "No, but if it was you, I would do it." I thought, okay, then I think maybe it needs to be me, because I've had enough conversations. I've heard what people need, and there's an issue. And so then it was literally after that weekend, and I started making calls all around to see, is this the right thing for me to do? And that included conversations with Mayor Carter as well. And then I made the decision to run after that because, the words of Melissa Hortman, she always said to us, these seats don't belong to us. You have to go out and earn the right to represent people, and that means you knock doors and you talk to people. And that democracy only works if we debate the issues vigorously, and the issues were not being debated at that moment. And so I decided to run. I know, that's a long story. I wish I'd be like, "Oh, I just thought I'd be the best person," and then I ran, and it's just not the way my mind works.
No, that's okay. And then, what were those past few months like since August? Was it just kind of a whirlwind, or what was that like?
Yeah, it's like a blur of hard work. I think because I think all of my jobs in my life, I've always taken very seriously. So I work really hard. And so this was just another thing that I said that I was going to do. So I would just work really hard. And so it wasn't new. It didn't feel, odd, but it was a new endeavor, and I learned a lot in it. But it took a lot of people to do it with me, this whole campaign team. So it's been a blur, but it's kind of the way I go all out on everything that I do, because I think you only get to be in this earth one time, and you only get to do it. So do it all. Love as much as you can, do as much as you can, laugh as much as you can, do it all, because you don't know when you're not going to get a chance to do it anymore. Yeah.
And then this is also a very historic win. You're going to be the first Asian woman, Hmong American in this role.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
It's so interesting. I should have this this aha moment, or this what is that? Just this transformational feeling. But the truth is I don't think that we ever look at ourselves and say I'm a woman or I'm an Asian woman, or I'm just a person. And so being able to understand the significance and why this is so important, we absolutely should be celebrating that as people, because every barrier that we break, that it creates an opening for the next generation of people to do this. But then at the end of the day, I'm still just a person who wants to do right by people, who wants to make sure that when I make promises to people that I keep them, and that if I can help make somebody's life better, that I do that. And that's irregardless of my gender, my identity, who I am. And so, and that's what ties us all together, is just the desire and the wish for something better. Then at the end of the day, I'm just a person trying to do right by people.
Yeah. And what are some of your concrete plans or goals as you take over this new position in January? I know you have some priorities on your website, affordable housing, protecting immigrants. What are some of your goals as you step in?
Yeah, so there's a lot that we have to do between now and even getting the inauguration, and we have to put a transition team together. I really appreciate Mayor Carter's offer to make sure that we have a smooth transition, and so we have a lot of groundwork that we have to lay, and then we get to the hard job of rebuilding relationships with people. I will meet with all of our city council members, learn about their priorities, what they care about, what are they working on in their districts. Working with our district councils and building infrastructure for communicating information from City Hall to people, but also taking information from people up to City Hall. And then working with all of our partners, because I can't do those priorities that were listed on my website if we can't do basic city functions well. And so I made a promise to the people of St. Paul that I would do the core basic services well. And that means that we're going to have to relook at our processes, how we communicate interdepartmentally, and making sure that we can just, execute on our core city function.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there like some issues that you're particularly wanting to really address and work on?
I mean, I think that there are always aspirational things that we think about when we're in a position where we can make those changes. But I will say that I can see what our city is facing these next 3 years under this Trump administration, and that we have to actually build our infrastructure. And I don't just mean like street infrastructure. I mean like the infrastructure for how do we protect people? How do we make sure that they get the basic services met, like whether it's having access to food or healthcare, like those things are so important. And that we really have to fortify our systems in order to weather out these next 3 years. And so for me, it is really about focusing on core city functions, doing the nuts and bolts, and ensuring that we can protect ourselves for the fallout of what's going to be happening these next few years. And then once I'm able to protect us from that, if I can do that, then we can start building out what other things we would like to have when we can protect the things that we have to have.
Sure. I know too, I think you mentioned on your website doing work on like mental health support, helping those struggling with like addiction.
Yeah.
What are some things you're hoping to do on that front?
Absolutely. So like I've already started having some preliminary conversations with people who are part of Wilder Foundation or organizations like the Drew Isaac Foundation, which I met them at a walk, and we talked about what their capacity is to take in people with addiction issues. And so I really think it is important that we pull in all of our partners and inventory what our capacity is, so that then we can connect people who need those services to it. And so that'll require a coordination with our law enforcement, with our court systems, with our nonprofit partners and our healthcare providers in order for us to do that assessment and get people the services that they need.
Sure. Oh, I think too, you've mentioned in your campaign like affordable housing, affordable living. What are some things around that topic that you're hoping to do?
Yeah, we just actually, one of the people on our team, he's a small developer, and as he was leaving, I said to him, like, we got to get a meeting together with all of the small developers, because we need to start putting a plan together of what that looks like and what projects we can take on. And so many of these things that I plan on and the things that I want to work on requires pulling partners together and putting a plan with them, because I can decide that I want to build a certain number of units, but unless I have the partners in place and know who can build how many units and how quickly and what resources they need, then it's just a number that I'm throwing out there, and it doesn't actually mean anything. So it really is pulling these partners together and saying, how will we move forward in building these units together if we're looking to build deeply affordable and market rate housing. And two, I will say that it will require, we've seen cities like Austin build quickly, and like, how did they do that, right? Like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here in our city. We can see what's already been done. We saw cities like Detroit actually come out of the pandemic better than we did. Like we need to really have these conversations with the different cities of how they're doing it, so that we can leverage those learnings and just implement them here. So, and that can't happen on day one. I have to have those conversations first.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it sounds like starting out with just a lot of conversations, getting that transition team together and connecting with people.
Absolutely. I know that sounds boring, but that's like literally the course of action that has to happen in order for you to build a plan and be able to put tangible steps and then hold yourself accountable to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Too, I know your parents weren't there last night.
Yeah.
Were you able to talk with them? Like, what was that like?
I talked to them on the way home, and my dad said to me in the sweetest voice, he was like, I don't know if I'm going to sleep tonight or if I can, I just have so much, I'm so excited. And so, and that's just not something that my dad would normally say, but I did talk to him. And, I wanted them to know, because I think that the part about my culture is, people, my parents have such humility. They don't talk about the sacrifices they made or all the things that they did for us. They don't do that. So it's the responsibility of the children that when you see that your parents have done well, that you honor them and you show them, and then you tell them, right? And so it was just me really, I think it's the first time in my life where I really told my parents, I'm only here because of them, and that everything that they did, the sacrifices that they made, and all of the ways in which, the values that they taught me, that's why I'm here. And I was telling my dad that, and I was like crying in the car while I was telling him. And like he was as calm as could be. And I just told him like I loved him. And I don't think I've ever told my parents I love them, because in Hmong culture, you show that you love somebody. You don't tell them that you love them. And I think was the first time I had ever told him. And my dad, I've seen my parents change quite a bit, because they told my younger siblings all the time that they loved them, right? But because I grew up in a generation in which that didn't really happen, it doesn't happen as often. And so for me to say to my father, like, I love you, like it was really special. Like on something, like I knew like I would not be here today if it wasn't for them. Yeah.
And to kind of going back to your childhood, like, what do you remember from that time when you like first moved to the U.S.?
Yeah.
I know you were young, but what was that time like?
I remember a giant slide. I remember preschool. It was interesting because I remembered even as a preschooler that American children, I didn't know they were American children, I just thought these kids here, they'd nap at school. Like, it was weird because we used to lay out these little rugs and then you would nap, like there was nap time. And I remember faking napping. So I would fake nap all the time because like we didn't nap and we didn't have set schedules because parents are working in the fields in our country and you take kids with you and you don't. And like, so like there was no like, oh, it's nap time at 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Like that didn't happen. So I would fake sleep. I would fake nap at school. And, but I just remember like my childhood, as strict as my parents were, I also had so much freedom because they were working so much, and all the adults were working. So I remember as children, we went everywhere, did everything. I learned how to bike when I was 4 years old, so I biked everywhere. And my cousins, the young cousins and I, we would just bike all over the town. And so that's what I remember about my childhood.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I remember because like then you have all of this freedom because Hmong kids they have a lot of autonomy. Like I think about like how interesting, like in a culture where we have so many rules, like there's also a lot of autonomy with children. And I remembered being maybe like at the end of elementary school and my mom saying to me, now that you're grown, you can't watch TV anymore. Like you have to get up in the morning, and like the expectation of girls were we would make the rice in the morning and then we would put all the dishes away and then we would prepare and she's like, you have to start doing that. And I thought, why did I just want to watch cartoons in the morning? And it was so interesting. Just like, so like I remembered just my family giving me a lot of freedom and how hard my parents were working, but also being taught a lot of responsibility as a young child, right? Like that, and all of those things I think is what makes me who I am today. Yeah.
And you're like the second oldest, right?
Yeah.
So did you kind of like watch over your younger siblings and look out for them?
We did. So like I have a lot of characteristics of as an oldest child because my sister and I are only a year apart, and because there were 6 of us. So starting we did take care of the younger siblings, and we cooked and we cleaned because my parents were working so much. And when we finally could drive, like we were picking up our siblings from school, like we became the ones who were running errands and getting kids from school and getting them home or getting people to activities. And so there was a lot of responsibility growing up. Yeah.
And then you're working on your doctorate
I
too?
am.
What's your doctorate?
It's in education leadership, and I'm writing on a topic of Hmong women in corporate executive positions and sort of really understanding their journey. Because it is, these are systems and structures that are hard to navigate, especially for first generations who don't have a lot of social or cultural capital. And so for them to be able to navigate it, like the learnings that we can share with other groups, new immigrant groups, or those who've been here multiple generations and haven't been able to break that class ceiling. So not like super interesting or sexy or anything.
Where are you studying?
At the University of St. Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much more schooling do you have? Or you have to
I am
thesis,
so at the end of it. I'm in my dissertation phase, and it had already taken me forever to get through the first half of the dissertation. And then this summer, I finished all my interviews, and I was supposed to like synthesize my data and like write up the last chapters and then defend and be done. And then I ran for mayor, so now I'm not gonna finish. But I think St. Thomas did promise me they wouldn't kick me out. So I've been in it for like 10 years now.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I'm literally at the end. I'm at the end. I finished all of my interviews. I just had to write up my last chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure. Also, I don't know if you've had a chance to look yet on kind of the voter, like kind of by geographic area of where.
I saw you guys put a map up. You guys are so, yeah.
Have you taken a look at that?
I looked at it briefly. Yeah.
What did you think about that, and kind of where you
Yeah.
strong foothold.
So we weren't surprised by what we saw. I mean, we really did get a lot of my district and Representative Pinto's district, so Senate District 64A. We knew that we had to really come out strong in those districts. But I don't think I was surprised by seeing like the east side of the districts and the areas in the east, the precincts on the east side. But I thought that we would get more in the Frogtown and Midway area. So I was surprised that we did not. So I'll have to go back and look at the data and dive a little bit deeper into that too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other reflections on just this race, this campaign?
I do just want to share that like I didn't do this alone. I mean, to have done this in 3 months took an entire team of people, and I am so grateful for every single person who joined this team, who led this team with me, because it was really their victory. And then every other person who knocked doors and put up lawn signs and contributed money or like just willing to hold a meet and greet, like every single person, every conversation mattered because this race was tight. And so everything everybody did mattered. Yeah.